Many people say that they want to write a book, yet 9 out of every 10 people who start writing a book never finish it, leaving one of their biggest dreams unfulfilled. So, what is it about the 1 in 10 people who do finish writing their book? What do they have, and what drives them to complete their books, their plays, and their songs? Welcome to the Editor's Desk, where we explore their writing experiences, their motivations, and their struggles. And now, here are your hosts, author, writing coach, and self-publishing guide, Lynn Everard, and author, Louise Gomez. Today is August 18th, 2022, and it is 5:30 p.m. on the East Coast, and you're watching live, and we are the Editor's Desk. My name is Lynn Everard.
Hi everybody, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming back. My name is Louise Gomez. Super excited about tonight's guest. We definitely have a lot to talk about.
You know, children's books are so important to all of us. I remember when my son and daughter were very, very young, every night before they went to bed, I sat with them in a red rocking chair and I read a book called Goodnight Moon to them.
You know, I totally agree with you, because not only having a great children's book, you know, sharing that story with them is important, but for me, my experience with my 3 boys has been the bonding time that it creates. It really creates those special moments and memories that it's so special, you can't even explain it. So it's so amazing when you have a great book to keep them engaged, and they'll want to, you know, be engaged in listening to the story. So
yeah, and we have a terrific author with us tonight, author of children's books. So Louise, how about if you introduce our guest?
Yeah, his name is Paul Martini, and I have to tell the story of how we met him because it was really funny. So we were going into Barnes & Noble's. You remember that?
Yep.
It was like a couple Saturdays ago. We were going to check our book out to see what the inventory was or something like that, and we were going in, and we saw a sign on the door, and it said children's author today, and it had a picture of the book, and it had his name, and I took a picture of it and I said, Lynn, he's going to be on our show. You said, okay. I said, watch, he's going to be on our show. So we called him and we connected really great. I have his bio here. I just want to read it real quick so I can do him some justice, because I know he's done a lot of great, interesting stuff. So our guest is Paul A. Martini. Paul Martini was born and raised in sunny South Florida. He studied creative writing, film and television production, and went on to start his own company in advertising. He used his writing and creativity to achieve success in many national advertising campaigns. He began writing his debut children's series with a rather particular artistic girl named Marla in 2019. The stories of her misadventures became quite an obsession, and since the completion of Marla and the Magic Ink Bottle, he has written 2 more novels, completing her trilogy. Paul is currently working on 3 more children's books and a 3-part science fiction novel for teens entitled The Triangle Chronicles, which will soon be in publication. On any given day, you may find him surrounded by his 3 dogs, sipping a fresh cup of coffee and happily typing out his next big adventure for an upcoming literary character. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. So, what's it like to be a children's author, and how did you get started on this journey?
You know, it's funny you asked that, because just recently I started going through some, you know, old folders and some boxes I had, because I was moving some stuff around, and I opened this box, and it was just a treasure trove full of ideas I've had since I was like 10, 11, 12. And the craziest part about this is that I had actually written and illustrated some of these books that have now turned into a reality, you know,
Wow.
at where I am now. So
That's amazing.
Marla and the Magic Ink Bottle was basically, it was a little boy named Milo. And so now I turned it into Marla, and who happens to be sitting next to me.
I know.
She's a little stage shy at the moment.
You know, I love the character, the artwork. I have to say, I was looking at it. We were looking at the book the other day when we were in Barnes and Noble, and I have to tell you, the artwork is spectacular.
Oh, absolutely.
Vibrant, colorful. It's beautiful.
Bianca Taylor is the illustrator, and it's amazing. You know, going back to what I had found, we were both taking a look at this stuff that I had. You know, I'm not half the artist she is, of course, but how amazing, without even telling her, how she captured the story that I had actually done without even telling her. All of the pictures, we were like looking, blown away at how it was amazing how we connected on this. And her, you know, artistic ability is amazing. She studied fashion design in South Africa, so she already had this talent. Now, this was her first book illustrating, and
Wow.
I kind of had to coax her a little bit and say, you can do this. She was a little nervous about this, but when it came out, I knew that, you know.
Spectacular.
And now
Really
we're
is.
working on the second one, which is like elevated to a whole new level. I mean, I'm really proud of both of them, you know, actually artistically.
So you've done these live events before with kids coming in and they're
Yes.
And so what does that feel like when you see the gleam in that child's eye
Wow.
because
I mean,
they've read the book and they can't wait to meet the person that wrote it?
There's something to be said about that, especially when our first one was Barnes and Noble and Plantation, and so I set everything up. We come in, we set everything up. We have marlas everywhere. We have parts of the tape, all the tables, little pieces and parts from the story, so it actually looks
Nice.
like, you know, you're in the book, you know,
Yeah.
and rather than actually read the story, because as you know, as an author, it's hard to sit there and read the story and then kind of circle around with the book and show the pictures, because as you said, the pictures are just like phenomenal.
They
So
are.
I've used my advertising talent producing videos to produce the actual movie, you know, a narrated movie. I actually do voiceovers for HBO and stuff, so I use my voiceover.
I knew I recognized that voice.
Yeah, so I've
Okay.
you know, I've done tons of voiceovers my whole life, so it was easy for me to read, and so I produced this whole thing, and they sit there, and when I start this whole thing, it's just amazing, to answer your question, Lynn, to see how these children, they sink into their seats, they kind of go into it a little bit, and I had the, you know, some of my closest friends came to the first one or whatever, and I was sitting there looking around a packed Barnes and Noble. I mean, it was completely, utterly packed with people, you know,
Wow.
sitting there, and had the pleasure of just looking around the room while it happened. And it's such an amazing feeling to see that something that you've created, something that you thought of long ago, that's finally come to, you know, fruition, finally that is there physically to hold, and that these children are actually enjoying the story, you know. And it's not just the children. I had a grandmother come up to us while we were doing the book signings, and she came up and she said, I have to tell you, I've been to many book readings, and she goes, I've never experienced anything like this ever.
Wow.
So I mean, it's just a positive, very cool, deep feeling, you know.
What I find so amazing is that you said this is something you did when you were 10 years old, that you already had that vision. That's so powerful, how you put your, whatever, you started writing or you just started drawing and you had that idea. So it's like dreams, if you put pen to paper, They come true. I
Actu-
mean, it's so powerful.
That's just the thing. But you have to, number one, put pen to paper.
That's right.
You have to do it. If you don't, I mean, what is a book? If you say if you have a book in your mind or you have a story in your mind, it'll only always just be in your mind unless you actually write it out. And once you write it out, the sense of accomplishment is just, I mean, you guys know more than anything, it's just absolutely,
Well, there's
no words.
a shift in thinking when that happens too, because no matter how badly you want to write a book, when you finally decide to start putting pen to paper, you realize that you can actually do this. And that you can start to feel yourself becoming an author. Right? And then there's this whole process that you go through, and then it's staying the course and getting to the end. And if you listen to our opening, 9 out of every 10 people who start writing a book never finish it. And so there's really something about people, and that's one of the questions that fascinates me is, what is it about you? What is it about other people? But specifically right now, what is it about you that caused you, even after this gap in time, to be able to actually finish it?
Do you know this? The crazy part is that it was like I started writing the first Marla, and then within, I'd say 3 months of finishing Marla and the Magic Ink Bottle, Marla and the Eggs from Mars and Marla and the Treasure on the Toast were completely done and finished.
Wow.
I went on a writing rampage. I had the ideas in my brain, and I could not sleep until they were typed out
We talk
and
about that.
ready to go. It's not even possible. The craziest part is that beyond the Marla trilogy, which I say a trilogy because there's so many stories that I have for her, and as well as I do, being self-published, it's just trials and tribulations of finally reaching to the point when you get to the point where you feel like you could just literally just have hundreds of stories, but you got to hit with that first one,
Yes.
You've got to hit. And I feel like, she's making powerful strides, with some really great things that are coming up, and some powerful things that have happened, that actually make you feel like this is worth your while, that you've hit on something.
Sure.
The story of Marla really is basically about, a little particular, peculiar little artist girl, who feels like, she loves to draw little monsters. Her whole thing is about drawing monsters. She's not into flowers and this and everything like that. Her thing is about drawing monsters. And, kids kind of make fun of her for, although there's Marla, she's drawing another creepy monster or whatever. But then she learns through this story that by the end of it, that being artistic and your vision, just like, I don't know if you guys can see these paintings on the wall.
Yeah, amazing.
Being yourself and being artistic is the most important thing in the world, because if you stay true to yourself, that's when you become the biggest you'll ever be. But if you follow things that have already been done, so that's the story of Marla, and that's a
powerful message.
Yeah, and that's what her deal is throughout the entire 3 books. Yeah, she gets into a little trouble with her artistic abilities, but she also uses those artistic abilities to get herself out of trouble. She uses everything inside of her. She comes up with solutions for problems by being artistic. And I don't think there is another character out there, that's got what she has going on.
And what I love about it is I feel like it teaches the kids a valuable lesson, which is be true to yourself.
Of course.
And embrace your uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A lot of times as a kid, I know I didn't maybe do that, and I didn't know to do that. So this is so important that he's teaching this through this amazing story.
Well, yeah,
it's a life lesson, but in a fun way you're teaching it, right?
Of course. It's the age-old tale, of also the fact that, the trials and tribulations of being somebody different and everything, and at the end of the story, it all comes out to be a wonderful thing,
Sure.
and the lessons are learned and all that. as you get, and that was the thing that I wanted to relay with the first one, was really just introducing Marla and the characters and the sheriff, who is going to be, who becomes this figure in all three books, and as the books start to come out, he's more of a figure in her life, because he's always, he's like she comes up with the answers for him, and he's always scratching his head like, how did she, like this,
Right.
just by being herself. And Marla and the Eggs from Mars is a definite leap into that, where you start to really realize,
So this is fabulous, because you are actually taking children through the hero's journey,
I was going to say the hero's journey.
right?
Exactly.
That this is
You
actually
heard that from my
bringing-
brain, Lynn. I kept saying the hero's journey. You're right. It's so true. Continue. Yeah.
I know. It's
just by being themselves and being,
Yes.
everybody's got children, that have had put their, that they do their drawings, and then, especially when I was young, that's where I think all this came from, to be able to do your little silly drawings or whatever. And I did some silly drawings and stick them on the refrigerator, right? And then everybody comes out, and it's kind of like you're at an art show, and you post them up, and everybody looks at them, and oh my gosh, look at, look what Paulie did, or
Yes.
and that feeling of like being like, yeah, it's pretty good, isn't it? And then taking those feelings and actually creating a character that, that has those same feelings of belonging, and people recognizing the talent, and that, yes, it's a hero's journey, because she uses that talent to, become the hero in the end.
Wow.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, imagine, for a child, especially, depending upon where they grew up. I'm actually working with an author right now who's been a therapist for 50 years, and he's writing about dysfunctional families. And it's like, wow, what a beautiful gift to a child that maybe came out of a dysfunctional family, to be able to read a book like this and to see themselves potentially as the hero in their own life, right? Which is what we all want to be anyway.
Absolutely.
So this is really powerful, and it's got to be so much help. And if you're a parent watching right now, I would just strongly encourage you to buy this book.
I know.
Because you can do so much good for your child without you having to lecture them. You can just hand the book to your child and let them read it, and they'll get it.
Exactly.
And by the way, what family isn't dysfunctional?
Right.
You were like particular. I'm like, I think we all grew up with a certain type of dysfunction, right?
Yes,
So
yeah.
it truly will benefit everybody who reads it, and I feel like the kids want to really continue to read it, because it's not only the colors, just everything that pops out. It's just vibrant, and I'm telling you, the illustrator is amazing.
Yeah, she really, I mean,
Phenomenal job.
phenomenal. It's the colors that actually, and I think that's also another thing about children's books. If you recognize where we came from growing up,
Right.
you had Dr. Seuss, Curious George, and all these Clifford, and all these amazing, incredible books. They leave, a mark on you, especially being a children's book author. You ask, your original question was, how is it that you become a children's book author? I think because some of this stuff that when I was little just left a really big mark on me, like, reading, being able to go into like your school library, right? And the smell of
yes.
those
I
old
remember
books when you
that.
crack them open, and it was just like, it's like you feel like when you're going to open the book, these sparkles are going to come out, and it's just going to be this magical experience. And I remember reading The Headless Horseman, and I think I was in 4th grade. I picked up this book, and I started reading The Headless Horseman, and it was all illustrated, of course, and it was just like, from then on, I just knew I have to do this.
That's amazing.
This is what I need to do. I mean, because I have so many stories, and which has led to writing other children's books, that I've that are completed now. I have 3 other children's books, up to and including a new book that actually comes with a magical box for Yeah, it's basically about it's the first children's book about the tooth fairy and her problems and tribulations that she has to go through to actually get the tooth out there. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it's
that's
very
great.
funny. It's got, you know, sarcastic humor, and I have the Porcupine Prince.
Nice.
And Rap-a-Tap-Tap and the Enchanted Drumsticks, about a little musician, you know, and his, you know, and which is kind of course, you know, telling you guys, you know, I am a musician also. So
Okay.
it stems from the heart, you know, and
Nice.
also the Triangle Chronicles.
Tell us about that.
Well, the Triangle Chronicles are it's the first time, you know, when you're writing children's books, you stay in that zone, you know,
Yeah.
you stay in that children-like zone that you know that they're going to understand. And I, you know, I have, for some reason, I have this ability to go into that zone, to come to you know, to regress, or but to think in that same, like, what are they going to enjoy? What's you know? And the hardest part is, even with Marla, it's like you would think that's for a little girl or whatever, but the little boys in the audience, like you said, are actually like glued to it as well, because you're gearing into monsters and this. So now I've had the opportunity with the Triangle Chronicles to actually come out of that and to start to think more in that Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter realm, where it's more epic, and, you know, and the Triangle Chronicles spanned dimensions, and it, you know, for all these different characters that come into, I mean, so I don't know if you've ever seen like a, you know, like a movie where the movie starts at the middle but then goes to the side, you know. So this is how it's written, and it's very it's basically a story about, you know, that tried and true good versus evil, you know, of course. But it deals with historical characters, which is kind of weird for me, because I actually have to study some history to actually write this book, and to try to be able to talk, like, there's some military parts in the book, so to learn how to speak, you know, in that military tone, and then, you know, it's because you want it to be as authentic as possible, you know. But the Triangle Chronicles are basically, it's based on the Bermuda Triangle. It's based, so it's...
That's interesting, because that's like an interesting vortex of energy. So I like that. I'm liking that.
And it's based on all of the myths and legends of planet Earth that we've come to know.
And something about Atlantis maybe in there. Okay, I'm digging this. I'm liking this.
So we cross it. Just if you can just.
Paul, one of the things that you've shared with us that I'd love you to share with our audience, and that is that you have seen some challenges for self-published authors, and you're working on something to support self-published authors.
Share.
Could you tell us a little about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, with the pandemic and everything that's happened and everything, we all know the story of just trying to get out there to actually reach our audience, of course, you know. And the thing is that I've had some basically challenges, you know, but now I've developed something through my company, which is basically what I do for a living beyond writing.
What's the website? Can you tell us?
Digital Magic Shop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Digital Magic Shop is my company.
Perfect.
And so I've come up with a way to help authors by because if you write a book and you just simply put it on a shelf, it's just going to be in your own collection. You have to write it, and you have to get it out to your audience. There is an audience for everybody who writes, you know, and if you don't do it, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's really terrific. We're delighted. We've enjoyed this conversation with you so much.
I'd just like to say one thing. I'd like to put a shout out to Finished in the Owl, which is basically she's opened a bookstore, and it's going to be for self-published authors as well as incredible authors that she has on her site.
Thank you.
And it's finishedintheowl.com. So if you're out there and you're actively writing, check it out.
Much.
That's fabulous. So join us next
back.
week when our guest is Chris DeSanti, a transformational trainer. If you've done gratitude trading, you know who he is.
The Urban Mystic.
Yes, and we will look forward to seeing all of you next week. Have a great week.
Thank you so much for coming. Great time. Even if you have never written a book, you are still an author. In fact, we all are. In every moment, each of us is writing our own unique story that we call our lives. Because many of us are, as in the lyrics of the Dan Hill song, Sometimes When We Touch, writers still trapped within our truth. If this is you, why not start writing your thoughts in a journal? It will help you get your truth on paper and could just be the start of your own book. And don't forget to join us here every week for the next edition of The Editor's Desk.